Shalom Israel, it's your brother Marcus G back with yet another truth for thought. First and foremost, I must give all honor, praises, and glory to the Most High. I must give all praises, honor, and glory to the Most High. Secondly, the prayer list. Starting out again with King Ricky this week, also known as Pretty Ricky, King Pretty Ricky. We have Queen Piper, Queen India, the Ellis family, which is King Charles Ellis Sr., Queen Sydney Ellis, and King Charles Ellis Jr., King Kemar and his family. We also have my beloved mothers in the truth, both Queen Valerie and her family, and Queen Paula and her family. My beloved aunt in the truth, Queen Shay, my beloved grandma in the truth, Queen Raya. Also, we have Queen Crystal, King Josh, Queen Ashley, Queen Brittany, King Ben, and Queen Cassandra. King Ben, I hope that list I sent you, you find the benefits in it. We have King Jermaine and Queen Kenya. We have King Diamond and Queen LaShonda. And we of the married couples, last but not least, well, King Greg and Queen Sharon, and also King Brian and Queen Shavonda. All right. I also ask Israel that you keep myself and my queen, King Marcus and Queen Ashley in prayer, as well as my beloved brethren, being King Gideon and his queen, King Yada and his queen, King Gino and his queen, and King Mike Malice. All right. Queen Carly, keep her in prayer. Queen Tanya. Israel, just keep the whole nation in prayer. We need it. All right. Now, breaking down Daniel chapter 7. All right. Many have asked me about Daniel chapter 7. The most recent, however, which I just said, you know what, I'm going to stop doing this individually. I'm going to go ahead and do a lesson about it. Get it over. All right. The latest person to ask me about Daniel chapter 7 would be King Brian, alongside of his Queen Shavonda. King Brian, there's going to have to be a part 2. You're going to see why. Because I'm going to break this down as if everyone of Israel has no idea of exactly what Daniel is talking about. All right. I'm going to start from scratch. So we're going to start. We're going to start in the Bible. Because I had to get a lot of stuff from the world, which proves everything that the Bible says. But I had to get a lot of stuff from the world, and that's why King Brian is going to have to be a part 2. I am going to break down the first 7 verses. Okay. First 7 verses. And it takes a lot to break it down. Right. So I had to do the first 7 verses. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do a part 2. I promise you, King Brian, I'm going to do a part 2 to finish Daniel 7 up. So this is Daniel chapter 7, part 1. And I want to start with, we're going to start in the Bible. Okay? We're going to start in the Bible, and we're going to start with Jeremiah chapter 28. We're going to start with Jeremiah chapter 28, and we're going to get verses 7 through 8. Jeremiah chapter 28, verses 7 through 8. Listen to this. Nevertheless, hear thou now this word that I speak in thine ears, and in the ears of all the people. Israel, you are the people. The prophets that have been before me and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and against great kingdoms, of war and of evil and of pestilence. You'll understand why I brought that out the further we go. These are our foundational scriptures, okay? Our foundational scriptures for this particular truth for thought, all right? Now I want to go to Habakkuk. I want to go to Habakkuk. I want to go to chapter 2, and we're going to get verses 2 through 3, all right? And they read, and the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie, which means, but what the Most High is saying is, write down this prophecy, right? That it can be read about, right? Because, and it's a prophecy because it's for an appointed time. And when the prophecy comes true, it's not going to lie. It's going to happen just like the vision or the prophecy. All right. Though it tarry, wait for it. Though it's not going to happen right now, when the vision happens, when this prophecy, when this is revealed, when this was revealed to the prophets, it didn't happen right then. That's what, though it tarried. I mean, though it didn't happen, it didn't hasten to happen, right? Wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. So it's saying when it surely happens, it's going to make haste when it's happening, okay? Keep that in mind, because we're going to go and look at a vision, a prophecy that Daniel had, okay? Now, but before we go there, right, there are some things we're going to see in Daniel 7 that the Most High had already warned Israel about. He warned Israel about some of these things, right? So I want to go to, and also I want to let some things be known, because I know what we're going to go into, and I know how I'm going to go into it. So I want to have some things be known. All right. Let some things be known. All right. Also, I want to say this truth for thought is best that you have pen and paper, right? Everything that's in this truth for thought that you will see, I'm not going to speak on it, but I'm going to leave links for everything, because what I want you to do, Israel, is I want you to go back and I want you to do a timeline, right? Because although it was a prophecy when Daniel saw it, those prophecies came true. They happened, and they happened over a timeline. And it's going to be proven that exactly how he had this vision, that's exactly how it happened, both biblically and historically. So even after watching this, I want you all to go into the description, if you would, this is what I would do. Go into the description, go look at these links and look at some very specific things. Read the whole text, as I won't be able to. This lesson will be too long. Read the whole text. Look at the times. Look at the people. Look at, because it brings about a picture. Look at the whole picture as Daniel saw. I can't give those specifics. It takes too long. The reason Daniel, and what Daniel gives is a summarization. He doesn't even say to the fullest detail what his vision entailed. All right. Study to show thyself approved, Israel. Okay. Now, I said that these things, Israel had kind of been warned about some of these things, right? I said that, and I'm telling you, the Bible says it. So let's first turn to Hosea chapter 13. We're going to go to Hosea chapter 13, all right? And we're going to get verses 7 through 8. Hosea 13, we're getting verses 7 through 8, and they read. Now, Hosea was written before Daniel, right? Let's look at this. Therefore, I will be unto them as a lion. This is in regards to Israel for our being disobedient. Therefore, I will be unto them as a lion. Write that word lion down. Because I want you to understand the Most High creates all things, good and evil. Write that word lion down. As a leopard, by the way I observe them, I will meet them as a bear. Write down lion, write down leopard, write down bear. That is bereaved of her whelps and will render the call of their heart, and there will I devour them like a lion, the wild beast. Write that word, those two words down. Wild beasts shall tear them. I'll go ahead just so it's clarified. So that everybody know that he was talking about Israel and what he's going to do. Israel. Let's go to verse 9. O Israel, hast thou destroyed thyself, but in me is thine help. Okay. All right. So now that I got that out of the way, I want to go to Daniel chapter 2 and verse 21. Let's go to Daniel chapter 2 and verse 21. And it reads, and he changeth the times and the seasons. Listen to this next part, Israel. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. He removeth kings and setteth up kings. All right. If you would, write that down. And right under it, if you would, right under the word kings, write nations. Under both places where you see kings. And right under that word, empires. So the Most High removeth kings and setteth up kings. He removeth nations and setteth up nations. He removeth empires and set up empires. Remember that. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. I'm going to go to Proverbs 21 and 1. Proverbs 20, because I want to set some things in place prior to going into Proverbs 21 and 1. 21 and 1. Now, about those kings that he removeth and setteth up, those nations, those empires that he removed and set them up. But I want to talk about the kings in particular. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. As the rivers of the water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. So he'll utilize these kings that lead nations, that become empires. He bends these kings to his will, right? Understand that. I want you all to understand this, all right? Now let's go to Ecclesiasticus 10 and 8. We're going to go to Sirach chapter 10 and verse 8, all right? And it reads, because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. Now, let me break this down because I see it. I want to set some things up. When the Most High is bringing these kings up and removing them, and there are riches that are being, when you see translated, they're being transferred from one to the other. And I want you to understand these riches all came from Jerusalem. They all started in Jerusalem. All right. But each time these kings are removed and replaced, and each time these nations are removed and replaced, each time these empires are removed and replaced. And when I say the word nations, I'm not saying like biblical nationalities per se. When I'm saying nations, I'm saying nations like Greece or Rome or Italy. When I'm saying, I'm using the word nations as it's known today when I'm saying that. All right. So now let's go to first Esdras. So we understand that the Most High utilizes kings and he replaces them and removes them as he sees fit, right? We also see that with the transference, the transfer of power comes the transfer of riches as well. Keep all of this in mind. All right. Let's go to first Esdras chapter 2. First Esdras chapter 2, and we're going to get verses 10 through 12. Right. King Cyrus also brought forth the holy vessels, because I said these things started in Jerusalem, these riches that are being transferred around. King Cyrus also brought forth the holy vessels which Nebuchadnezzar had carried away from Jerusalem and had set up in his temple of idols. Now, when Cyrus, king of Persians, remember that, remember the Persians, had brought them forth, he delivered them to the Mithridates, his treasurer. So King Cyrus, the Persians, had took the same riches. This king took the same riches that were taken from Jerusalem by Nebuchadnezzar. He took them, and there was a transference. Verse 12, and by him were they delivered to Sanballat, the governor of Judea. So you see the riches are transferring with this transference of power from king to king, from nation to nation, from empire to empire, which the Most High moves these kings at his will to do this. All right. Now let's go to Joel 3. Let's go to Joel 3. Joel chapter 3. And we're going to give verses 4 through 5. And they read, yea, and what have ye to do with me, O Tyre and Zidon? This is talking about the Africans and all the coast of Palestine and all the Palestinians. Will ye render me a recompense? And if ye recompense me swiftly and speedily, will I return your recompense upon your own head? Look at verse 5. Because ye have taken my silver and my gold, and have carried into your temples my godly pleasant things. Remember, when we back at first Esdras, it talked about these holy vessels. So all these riches and all these holy vessels and all these goodly, pleasant things all started in Jerusalem. Now I want to go to First Maccabees chapter 6. We're going to be all over the Bible. I'm telling y'all now. First Maccabees chapter 6. We're going to get verses 1 through 3. About that time, King Antiochus, traveling through the high countries, heard say the Elamites in the country of Persia was a city greatly renowned for riches, silver, and gold, and that there was in it a very rich temple wherein were coverages of gold and breastplates and shields, which Alexander, son of Philip, these names that you all are hearing, y'all gonna see a lot of them again when we really get into Daniel 7. Son of Philip, the Macedonian king, remember him, Alexander the Greek, which the world would say Alexander the Great, the Macedonian king. That's one of those empires we're going to talk about in Daniel 7. Who reigned first among the Grecians, had left there. Again, that transfer of those riches. Wherefore he came and sought to take the city and to spoil it, but was not able to, because they of the city having had warning thereof. All right. Now let's go to Second Maccabees 3 and 6. Again, I'm setting the tone because you're going to see about some empires. You're going to see about some kings, and you're going to see about the transference of these nations, these kings, these empires. And I want you to understand that riches were also being transferred or translated, as we saw in the Bible, from one to the other, but they all started at Jerusalem. All right. Second Maccabees, we're going to get Second Maccabees. We're going to get chapter 3 and verse 6. All right. Second Maccabees, chapter 3, verse 6. And told him that the treasury in Jerusalem was full of infinite sums of money, so that the multitude of their riches, which did not pertain to the account of the sacrifices, was innumerable, and that it was possible to bring it all into the king's hand. But where did this? Who was rich? Jerusalem. Keep that all in mind. The last one I want to go to, just to set this tone and let you know what all was going on when we get to Daniel 7, what all was being transferred when we get to Daniel 7. Let's go to 1 Kings. 1 Kings chapter 10 and verse 21. And all King Solomon's drinking vessels were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was nothing accounted of in the days of Solomon. So what this is saying is, who was really rich? Who was rich? Who was rich? Israel was rich. Jerusalem had infinite amounts of gold, as we read back in Second Maccabees 3 and 6. So now let's go and let's delve into Daniel chapter 7, right? Let me stop sharing my screen, because before we delve into it, I want to let you all know what was happening, where his vision started, what was happening prior to his vision. right? Again, his vision was a prophecy, right? Well, there were things that were not mentioned in his vision that I have to touch bases on, or I wouldn't fully cover this, all right? But I do want you all to understand that each time these kings and nations and empires were removed and replaced, riches were translated, just like the kings were translated. It was translated from one king to the next. It was translated from one nation to the next nation. It was translated from one empire to the next empire. It simply means it was transferred from one to the other. With the fall of one, all those riches were simply transferred to the next. All right. But they all started in Jerusalem. Okay. Let's go. I'm going to share my screen because I want to get a little basic information first. Okay. We're going to look at Daniel 7. As you see right here. In chapter 7, Daniel has a vision of 4 beasts. I told y'all to write their 2 words down. Beasts, wild beasts. Coming up out of the sea, and is told that they represent 4 kingdoms, 4 nations, 4 empires with kings. Right. The first is a beast like a lion with eagle's wings. Okay. The second is a beast like a bear raised up on one side with 3 curves between its teeth. The third, a beast like a leopard with 4 wings and a fowl and 4 heads. A fourth beast with large iron teeth and 10 horns. This fourth beast, though, it was a little different. This is explained as a 4th kingdom, different than all the other kingdoms. It will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. A further horn, a little horn, appears and uproots 3 of the previous horns. This is explained as a future king. Now, I'm going to tell you, we're going to stop at verse 7, so we're not going to get to verse 8 where those horns are mentioned. I will start at verse 8 for part 2 of the Daniel 7 breakdown. All right? I'll tell you all that now. But first, that first beast, which is a beast like a lion with eagle's wings, I want you to understand that beast, which was led by a king, which is a nation, which is an empire, had actually, the power had just been transferred to their dominance, to their domination. Now, it was transferred from the ancient Neo-Assyrians. So let's look at that first. Like I said, I got to give the preface before we dive into it. So the Neo-Assyrian Empire, right? The Neo-Assyrian Empire, or the Assyrian Empire, was the 4th and penultimate stage of ancient Assyrian history, beginning with the ascension of Adad-Nirari II in 911 BC. I told y'all it's going to be dates and stuff. Y'all may want to keep mention of them, write them down, because so you'll be able to follow along, because what Daniel is going to prophesy about, those times are going to line right on up. And you're going to see a picture painted by the Bible through Daniel. All right. Although it was prophetic when he had this vision, those things have happened now in our day. But this helps to understand what was going on during certain times in the Bible. All right. The Neo-Assyrian Empire grew to dominate the ancient Near East throughout much of the 8th and 7th centuries BC, becoming the largest empire in the history up to that point. So until that translation of power, that transfer of power to a more dominant empire, this was at that point in time the most dominant empire. Well, the first beast, and I want to do this too. Let me go ahead and show you this. That's what this was, the Assyrian Empire right here. This is what made up the Assyrian Empire. Okay. Remember this picture. Remember this picture. Okay. Assyrian Empire. All right. Now, the first beast mentioned in Daniel 7 devours the Assyrian Empire, right? The first transfer, the first translation of power. Now, let's go. Remember, I've shown you how the area that was known as the Assyrian Empire. Now, let's go back to the Bible, right? Make sure. Oh, also, I want you all to make note of this god, the Assyrian god. You see the wings? This is mentioned in the Bible. I will show you where. All right. This was a symbol of Assyria and its domination, right? Which, as we read, up to that point, it was the most dominant empire. Okay. Now, this was after the Egyptian Empire, also was a dominant empire. But as you can see, the square area of this empire even goes over to Egypt. So guess what? That dominance didn't stay with Egypt. Not at all. The Most High had removed the king and replaced the king. He had removed a nation and replaced it with another nation. He had removed a kingdom, replaced it with a new kingdom. He had removed an empire, replaced it with a new empire. All right. Now, let me make sure I'm where I need to be. Yeah. Now let's go back. Stop sharing my screen. Now, let's go back to the Bible. And let's go to Daniel 7, chapter 1. Now we got a whole background, right? Daniel 7, chapter 1. In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream and visions of his head upon his bed. Then he wrote the dream, just like the Most High said to do, and told the sum of the matters for others to read, just like we saw in the fundamental scriptures, right? Foundational scriptures, right? Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. Now I got to stop right there. I got to stop right there, right? Let me go to Numbers 12 and 6. Let's go to Numbers 12 and 6. 12 and 6, right? And he said, hear now my words. This is why he wrote it down. And this is what he announced. Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision and will speak unto him in a dream. So let's go back to Daniel 7, verse 1. And in verse 2, he said, well, first, verse 1, he said he wrote the dream because the Most High had visited him. giving him a revelation, just like we just saw in Numbers 12 and 6. And he spake about what he saw in his dream, right? And you see about the winds of the heaven strove upon the great sea. Now, these winds, the four winds, they represent destruction. It can be proven. Let's go to Revelation chapter 7, verse 1. Revelation chapter 7. And there are other precepts that prove that winds mean destruction. Revelation chapter 7, and we're going to get verse 1. And it reads, and after these things I saw four angels, these are the angels of death, standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. They were holding them because it wasn't time for them to let them go for the destruction of the earth. Okay. So those winds are destruction. He's talking about some destruction. And then these seas, we're going to see they represent people or nations or empires. All right. Now we're going to get some precepts to prove that. Let's go to Isaiah 57 and 20. Isaiah chapter 57 and verse 20. Isaiah chapter 57 and verse 20. And it reads, but the wicked are like the troubled sea. And I'm going to tell you, it's 17 biblical nationalities that are the wicked. One of them is the border of wickedness. There are 17 biblical nationalities that are wicked. Only one can sin. The other 17 are wicked. When it cannot rest, whose waters cast up mire and dirt. They have horrible doctrine. They follow false gods. Mire and dirt. Right? Mire and dirt. All right. Now, let's go to Revelation 17 and 15. Revelation 17 and 15. We're just saying that the sea are people or nations. Revelation 17, verse 15. Right? So that everybody understand what is being said here. And it reads, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. All right. Just had to bring that out so everybody will know what so people, so that it'll be understood that what's going on in Daniel 7 is a lot of I really don't metaphors. I'll just say metaphors. When he was referring to the winds, he was referring to destruction. When he was referring to the sea, he was referring to people or nations, kingdoms, empires. Okay. Let's go back to Daniel 7. Let's go back to Daniel 7. All right. Now remember, I told you all earlier to write down wild beasts, right? Wild beasts. And four great beasts came up from the sea, diverse one from another. Now, four beasts or kingdoms, dominations, came up from the sea from the people that occupied place. All of these kingdoms or dominations were different from one another. All right. Let's look at the first of these beasts. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked. I'm going to stop right there. Where you see, I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, that's referring to when this particular domination overthrew the last. Now, the last domination, the one prior to this domination, was the Assyrians, which is why I showed you that picture. And I said, you see these wings? Those wings were plucked. All right. Did you see it was a man with those wings around him? Again, that's Assyrian. That's a show of Assyria. Let's keep reading. And it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man. And a man's heart were given to it. Now, I want to stop sharing my screen. And we're going to talk about that first beast. But first, we're going to deal with that second part, which is talking about the wings being plucked. And you see a man standing. So I'm going to go back here. Here's the picture of the Assyrians. Right. One of their symbols. You pluck those wings off, it's just a man standing. It's just a man standing. So that is talking about when this first beast, when this first nation was overtaken by this first beast. So the Assyrians was the prior nation. They were taken over by this first beast. Well, who was the first beast, King Marcus? You might ask. The first beast that Daniel speaks of, first, is not a literal beast. Okay. Let's go. Like I said, it's not a literal beast. It's a nation. So I want to go back to the Bible real quick. I want to go to Baruch chapter 3. Let's go to Baruch chapter 3. Baruch chapter 3 and verse 16. Let's go to Baruch chapter 3. We're going to get verse 16 real fast. Real fast. Then we're going to go back to where we were. All right. Where are the princes of the heathen? Remember where we read about the wicked in Isaiah? Princes of the heathen, princes of any of the other 17 biblical nationalities outside of Israel. Where are the princes of the heathen become, and such as rule the beasts upon the earth? These beasts that they rule, these kingdoms, these empires. That's what these wild beasts are that Daniel is seeing. They are empires. The princes are the rulers. Here in this verse, you see, where are the princes? Where are the rulers of the heathen become? And such as ruled kingdoms, nations, empires upon the earth. When you see wild beasts, or when you see beasts. So now, let me stop sharing my screen here. Just had to break that down. And I'm going to go back to sharing my screen. So this first beast, they overtook this particular empire, the Assyrian Empire. The first beast did. The first beast plucked the wings off of this empire and left it as just a man standing, right? Translated all those riches and everything that particular empire, and I'm going to show again, the landmass that empire covered. This is it right here. This is the landmass that empire covered, right? This is the landmass of the Assyrian Empire, right? And we're going to go, and here it is again. You see it here again. So I'm going to go and take this back because I want to stay on that picture that it was at for a reason. All right. Now, this particular empire was taken over by the first beast. So again, King Marcus. Well, who was the first beast? Okay, the first beast is described as a lion. And this lion also had wings. So I'm going to share with you the Babylonian Empire. This first beast looked like a lion with wings. This was the Babylonian Empire. Let's read about the Babylonian Empire. Let's read about the Neo-Babylonian Empire, and let's see if, when I gave that preface about the Assyrian Empire being overturned, being overrun or taken over by the Babylonian Empire, let's see. The Neo-Babylonian Empire, or Second Babylonian Empire, historically known as the Chaldean Empire, was the last politely ruled by monarchs of Mesopotamia, beginning with the coronation of Nabopolassar as the king of Babylon in 626 BC. Look at that timeline. And being firmly established through the fall of the Neo-Assyrian Empire in 612 BC. Wait a minute, though. So when we looked at the Neo-Assyrian Empire, the Neo-Assyrian Empire was there beginning in 911 BC and went all the way back to, let's go back to it, when they were overturned, 612 BC. Time is moving forward. Kings are being removed and kings are being placed. Nations are being removed, nations are being placed. Kingdoms are being removed, kingdoms are being replaced. Empires are being removed, as that was the Neo-Assyrian Empire, now replaced by the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Right? Empires are being replaced. All right. In 530, the Neo-Babylonian Empire was conquered by, it even go into the next beast, but we're going to act like we don't see it. In 539 BC, marking the collapse of the Chaldean dynasty, less than a century after it was found. Less than 10 years after it was found, the first beast fell to the second beast. And you see the date when it fell in 539 BC. So now, let's look at the Babylonian Empire. That's what the Babylonian Empire was. Okay. What I also want you to notice is with the transfer, remember I talked about the transference of power from king to king, the transference of power from nation to nation, the transference of power from kingdom to kingdom and empire to empire. I also talked about the riches transferred. Look at how much land it's transferred. Notice that as well while we're going through this. All right. That's how big the Babylonian Empire was. Okay. Now, you saw where it said the Babylonian Empire was taken over by the Achaemenid Empire, right? Let's go back to the Bible. Stop sharing my screen. Stop sharing my screen. The world messed around and gave y'all a preface in the verse, into verse 4. No, verse 5. Right? So let me share my screen back to the Bible. We're going to go back to Daniel 7 and chapter 5. Daniel 7 and chapter 5. So before we go to verse 5, let's go back over verse 4, just for clarity. Okay. So it says the first was like a lion. Y'all saw this. And had eagle's wings. You saw that. And he beheld till the wings of the previous umpire thereof were plucked. You saw the previous umpire and their wings and what their symbol was. And it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon the feet as a man. You saw it was a man with wings, the previous umpire. And the man's heart was given to it. So that's talking about the Babylonian Empire as it took over and ruled. It took over it overtook the previous empire of the Assyrians, and then it was in domination or dominance, right? So the first beast is the Neo-Babylonian Empire. That's the first beast Daniel speaks of. Let's look at the second beast, verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second like to a bear. Remember that. And it raised up itself on one side. Remember that. That is a key. That is a part of the puzzle. And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said thus unto it, arise, devour much flesh. See, there's a lot of keys here. It's a lot of clues, a lot of nuggets. So you see, it's a beast. It was like to a bear that raised itself on one side. You already saw where it is the Maccabees Empire. This is also known as the Medo-Persian Empire, or the Persians and the Medes. Now, why does Daniel say it raised itself up on one side? This is why. Because the Persians were above the Medes. In fact, the Persians actually conquered the Medes and made them part of their kingdom. So that was their bear raising up on one side. Now, this bear, it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, right? 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth. I want to go first, before we go back to the world stuff, to look at this particular domination. I want to go to Esther 1 and 1. Let's go to Esther 1. Esther 1. I want to get Esther 1. Esther, go back. Esther 1 and 1. Let's keep it. I want to look at something. Now it came to pass, because y'all probably saw the movie 300, right? The Persians and the Medes. There was this dude called Xerxes. He's right here in the Bible. Let's read about it. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus. This is Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. This was Xerxes as he was depicted in 300. And he ruled over 127 provinces, right? We're going to see his kingdom's mass. I'm going to show you all. But before I do that, I want to go to Daniel 3. Remember, it's over 127 provinces, right? Let's go to Daniel chapter 8, verse 3. Because I'm going to end up having to break Daniel 8 down too. I already know. I've been asked about it several times. Then I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. This is still talking about this domination. I'm going to show you why. And the 2 horns were high, but one, the Persians, was higher than the other, the Medes. And the higher came up last. All right. This second beast is the Persians and the Medes. All right. I'm gonna drop down to verse 20. The ram which thou sawest having two horns are the kings of Media and Persia. That easy. That simple. It's often referred to as the Medo-Persian Empire. It is now, let me stop sharing my screen. Share my screen again. It is now more commonly known as the Achaemenid Empire, right? The Achaemenid Empire. This is their symbol. You're going to notice a lot of eagles and wings and stuff like that when it comes to a bunch of these conquering dominations and conquering empires, right? Let's get a little something about the Achaemenid Empire, right? Or the Persian Empire. The Achaemenid Empire or Achaemenian Empire is the empire of the kingdom, was the ancient Iranian empire founded by Cyrus the Great. Remember the name Cyrus? We've seen that when I went into the Maccabees earlier. When I went to the Maccabees talking about the transfer of wealth, this is just a world proving the word to be true. Same person. Founded by Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid dynasty in 550 BC. Look at how time is constantly moving forward. Also known as the First Persian Empire, based in Western Asia. It was the largest empire the world had ever seen at its time. Just like they said about the Babylonian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire and the Neo-Assyrian Empire, right? Spanning a total of 5.5 million square kilometers, 2.1 million square miles, from the Balkans and Egypt in the west to Central Asia and the Indus Valley in the east. Around the 7th century BC, the region of Persis in the southwestern portion of the Iranian plateau was settled by the Persians. From Persis, Cyrus rose and defeated the Median Empire, as well as Lydia and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, marking the formal establishment of a new imperial polity under the Achaemenid dynasty. Now, this particular beast in the Achaemenid Empire, right? It had 3 ribs in its teeth, right? I want to understand that the teeth represent the military. It represents the military power, okay? That's what the teeth represent. So let's go back to the Bible. Then I'm going to address these 3 ribs. Let's go back to the Bible. Stop sharing. Go back to the Bible. Share my screen. Back to the Bible. And we're going to go to Proverbs 30 and verse 14. Proverbs chapter 30 and verse 14. Let's just see. Because I'm breaking this down as if no knowledge of what is being read by my beloved brethren. They have no knowledge of what is being read. I'm breaking it down to that degree. So we're going to see here in Proverbs chapter 30, verse 14, there is a generation whose teeth are as swords, and their jaws as knives, to devour the poor from off the earth and the needy from among men. I've already done a lesson about the poor and needy. However, this is where you see what Daniel was talking about, and we'll go back to Daniel 7. Let's go back to Daniel 7. And we read verse 4, I want to say. Verse 5, right? Verse 5. And behold, another beast, a second beast, like to a bear, it raised up itself on one side. That's because Persia was higher than Media. And it raised itself up, right? And it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it between the teeth, which their military had taken over. So let's look at these 3 ribs, right? I will tell you these 3 ribs are Lydia, Babylon, and Egypt. How do you know, King Marcus? Let's prove it. Let's prove what those 3 ribs were. Let me share my screen again. Share my screen back to here. Now you see right here, first you see Egypt already, right? You see right here where it says Lydia. But I'm going to go a little deeper, right? We're going to go and we're going to look at the actual battle. We got the Battle of Thembra, right? This was one of those ribs, as this was the conquest of one of those 3, right? The Battle of Thembra was the decisive battle in the war between Croesus of the Lydian kingdom and Cyrus the Great of the Achaemenid Empire. Cyrus, after he had pursued Croesus into Lydia after the drawn battle of Pteria, met the remains of Croesus's partially disbanded army in battle on the plain north of Sardis in December 547 BC. Croesus's army was about twice as large and had been reinforced with many new men, but Cyrus still utterly defeated it. That proved to be decisive, and after the 14-day siege of Sardis, the city and possibly its king fell, and Lydia was conquered by the Achaemenid Empire, by the Persians and the Medes. Okay, that was one of the ribs. All right. The next I said was Babylon. Let's look at the Battle of Opis. The Battle of Opis. The Battle of Opis was the last major military engagement between the Achaemenid Persian Empire and the Neo-Babylonian Empire, which took place in September 539 BC during the Persian invasion of Mesopotamia. At the time, Babylonia was the last major power in Western Asia that was not yet under Persian control. The battle was fought in or near the strategic riverside city of Opis, located north of the capital of the city of Babylon in modern-day Iraq, and resulted in a decisive victory for Persia. Shortly afterwards, the Babylonian city of Sippar surrendered to Persian forces, who then supposedly entered Babylon without facing any further resistance. The Persian king, Cyrus the Great, was subsequently proclaimed as the king of Babylonia and its subject territories, thus ending its independence and incorporating the entirety of the fallen Neo-Babylonian Empire into the greater Achaemenid Empire. Let's look at the third rib. The third rib was Egypt. And we're going to look at the Battle of Pelusium. All right, the Battle of Pelusium. The Battle of Pelusium was the first major battle between the Achaemenid Empire and Egypt. This decisive battle transferred the throne of the pharaohs to Cambyses II of Persia, marking the beginning of Achaemenid 27th dynasty of Egypt. It was fought in 525 BC near Pelusium an important city in the eastern extremes of Egypt's Nile Delta, 30 kilometers to the southeast of the modern Port Said. The battle was perceived and followed by sieges at Gaza and Memphis. Let's look at the Achaemenid Empire. See that expansion of land? With the transfer of that power from kingdom to kingdom. Now let's go back over the timeline. You had the Neo-Assyrian domination. Well, prior to that, you had the Egyptian domination or kingdom. Then you had the Assyrian domination or kingdom, or the Neo-Assyrian Empire. Then you had the Babylonian kingdom or the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Now you have the Persian and the Mede kingdom or the Achaemenid Empire. And look at, again, with the transfer of these powers come the transfer of riches, and look at the expansion of land. All by heathen nations. Let's go back to the Bible. We're finna go to Daniel 6. So, Daniel 7, verse 6. So, the first beast, verse 4, Neo-Babylonian Empire is what Daniel was talking about. Verse 5, Persians and the Medes, right? Let's go to verse 6. After this, I beheld, and lo, another. It's another beast, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. It had a beak. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. All right. What is this dominance? What is this kingdom? This will be the Greeks and the Macedonian Empire. Okay. The Greeks and the Macedonian Empire, right? Now, I want to stop sharing. I don't know why it was paused. I want to stop sharing my screen, right? Because I want to go into who led the Macedonian Empire. The Macedonian Empire was led by Alexander the Greek. And I want to share my screen to this. You notice he said, close this out. Notice he said a leopard, right? Alexander the Greek, others refer to him as Alexander the Great, was known for riding his horse with leopard skin strapped on it, just like you see here. Just like you see here, right? Let's go. Also, the leopard is to show how swiftly his empire did what it did. Okay, so let's go back to the Bible before we start reading about the Macedonian Empire. Let's go back to the Bible, and I'm gonna go to First Maccabees chapter 1. First Maccabees chapter 1. First Maccabees chapter 1. We're going to get verses 1 through 9. Because you saw about foreheads and all that. And I got to give a preface to lead into that. Okay. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius, the king of the Persians and the Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece. Again, this is the Macedonian Empire, okay? And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth. You're going to see how much greater the transfer of power and the transfer of land is when we look at it. I got it just for that. And went through to the ends of the earth and took spoils of many nations. Again, that transfer of wealth. Insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings and became tributaries unto them. And after these things, he fell sick. Now, this is key, because this is going to explain why Daniel saw these four heads. And after these things, he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and he had brought up with him from his youth, and he parted his kingdom among them. It was four of them, while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. So in his 12 years, again, that's that leopard, that speed. Within his 12 years, we're going to see what all he conquered. Right? But this beast was then superseded by these four. Right? And I'm going to go to verse 9, verse 8. And his servants, those four, bear rule everyone in his place. You will understand why it says they bear rule everyone in his place. You'll understand that when we get to a map. And after his death, they all put crowns on themselves, all four of them. So did their sons after them for many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. Before we go and really look at the Macedonian Empire, I want you to understand this right here, this empire right here, Alexander the Greek, he was a homosexual. Evils were multiplied in the earth. They were into bestiality. Evils were multiplied in the earth. All types of fornication. Evils were multiplied in the earth. Definitely amongst this, when this empire took hold. I had to get this. So let me stop sharing my screen. And now let me go and look at the Macedonian Empire, led by Alexander the Greek. That's all you'll hear me say. I'm never going to call this Edomite great ever in my life. Now, at one point in time when I was ignorant and knew nothing, I referred to him as that. But now that I know what I know, this is Alexander. Israel, meet Alexander the Greek. The Greek. Alexander the Greek. Others refer to him as the Great. commonly known as Alexander the Great, was a king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia. Again, the Macedonian Empire. He succeeded his father, Philip II, which we read even in the Bible, to the throne in 336 BC. Time moving on up. Are you keeping up with the timeline, Israel? Everything is lining up with exactly what Daniel saw, as it was a prophecy when he saw it. But this is how historically it went down. At the age of 20, and spent most of his ruling years conducting a lengthy military campaign throughout Western Asia and Egypt. By the age of 30, he had created one of the largest empires in history, again, especially at its time, stretching from Greece to Northwest India. He was undefeated in battle and is widely considered to be one of history's greatest and most successful military commanders. Again, all four of these beasts were diverse from one another. Some, you can see the advancements. This is one where you could really see that. I mean, you look back. Let's go back and look one domination back, right? Which was the Achaemenid domination, right? The Persians and the Medes, which again were depicted in the movie 300, right? If you've ever seen that movie, you see where they say they brought all their beasts, the great and small, and as they brought them into the steel gates, they fell. That was an advancement. The way that they use such beasts as elephants and rhinos. You saw some of their inventions that they were throwing these like they were like shrapnel bombs. Like bombs that brought shrapnel out, and it was hitting them in their arms. It was hitting the Spartans. It hit one of them in the arms, cut him all up. But listen, the Greeks were even more advanced because they took over that particular domination, that particular empire, right? Let's keep reading. And I want to drop down right here. In 334 BC, he invaded the Achaemenid Persian Empire and began a series of campaigns that lasted for 10 years. This is how swift this leopard was. He ran through the land, as you saw in the Bible, in 12 years. He ran through the land, and we've yet to see the map. I'm going to show you the map, but it's still some other things I got to do. I got to finish breaking down all of Daniel 7 and 6. Okay. That lasted for 10 years. Following his conquest of Asia Minor, Alexander broke the power of Achaemenid Persia in a series of decisive battles, including those at Issus and Gaugamela. He subsequently overthrew Darius III and conquered the Achaemenid Empire in its entirety. After the fall of Persia, the Macedonian Empire held a vast swath of territory between the Adriatic Sea and the Indus River. Okay. Now, while that was going on, because while he was still alive, he had these 4 heads. These were his 4 generals. I'm going to drop down some. I'm going to let you see their names. The 4 generals are right. Hold on. Let me go over here. This way. Here. Right? The 4 generals are right. I gotta go down further. Oh, I was at the right one. Was I at the right one? Let me make sure. Was it the right one? I think I was. Because I want y'all to, I want Israel, I want you to be able to see so you'll understand exactly what it was that that Daniel was speaking of. Okay. I want you to fully understand exactly what it was. Here we go. So when he passed, there were this series of wars because Greece was fighting amongst each other for who should be ruling. And you saw where it said they set crowns on their head and ruled in their place. Here are those four heads. Ptolemy, one of his commanders. Cassander, Lysimachus, and Seleucus. And we're going to read about each of these four heads. All right. Let's look at the first one. Ptolemy. Ptolemy I Soter was a Macedonian Greek general, historian, and successor of Alexander the Greek, who went on to found the Ptolemaic Empire, centered on Egypt and led by the Ptolemaic dynasty from 305 BC to 30 BC. Ptolemy was Basileus and pharaoh of Ptolemaic Egypt from 305 or 304 BC to his death, during which time Egypt became a thriving bastion of Hellenistic civilization, and Alexandria a great seat of Greek culture, right? So you got Ptolemy. He put a crown on his head. He was one of them four. He was one of those four heads that Daniel talked about. But when we read in First Maccabees, chapter 1, he was one of those four friends of Alexander from his youth. You saw where Alexander spent most of his youth in a military campaign, training to fight, right? Esau was blessed with that, right? Again, all these dominations were heathen nations. All of them are wicked. That's why I went over the verses I did way at the beginning. All of them are wicked, right? But Esau is the border of it. All of the other 17 biblical nationalities outside of Israel are wicked. But Esau and his descendants, they are the border of it, right? These are Edomites. This is some of the border of wickedness, right? So you got Ptolemy, right? Was one of these four heads, one of the four generals that this empire that Daniel spoke of was split amongst, right? Let's look at the second head. First, let's look at what caused it. What caused it was the Dadiachi, the war of Dadiachi. That's what it's referred to historically, right? It was in these wars when these four crowned themselves, okay? It was during these wars, okay? Now, we saw Ptolemy. Let's go to Cassander, right? Cassander was king of the ancient Greek kingdom of Macedonia from 305 BC until 297 BC, and de facto ruler of southern Greece from 317 BC till his death. A son of Antipater, also in the Bible, and a contemporary of Alexander the Greek. Cassander was one of the Diadochi who warred over Alexander's empire when Alexander died, which we read way back in First Maccabees 1. Right? He was one of the four. He was the second of the four, actually. Following the latter's death in 323 BC, Cassander later seized power by having Alexander's son and heir Alexander IV murdered while governing Macedonia from 317 BC until 297 BC. Cassander focused on strengthening the northern borders and economic development while founding or restoring several cities, including Thessalonica, Cassandra, and Thebes. However, his ruthlessness in dealing with political enemies complicates assessment of his rule, right? So let's look at the third. This third head, right? Lysimachus, born in Cirsa, 360 BC, to a family of Thessalonian stock, but they were citizens of Pella in Macedonia. He was the second son of Agathocles and his wife. There is some indication in the historical sources that his wife was perhaps named Arsinoe, and that Lysimachus's paternal grandfather may have been called Alcimachus. His father was a nobleman of high rank who was an intimate friend of Philip II of Macedonia, who shared in Philip II's council and became a favorite in the Argemic court. Lysimachus and his brothers grew up in the status of Macedonians. All these brothers enjoyed with Lysimachus prominent position in Alexander's circle, and like him were educated at the Macedonian court in Pella. This was the third, because I don't want to have to read all the way down to where I'll read a little bit more. Let's read a little bit more. The historian Justin relates the story that Lysimachus smuggled poison to a person Alexander had condemned to a slow death and was himself thrown to a lion as punishment, but overcame the beast with his bare hands and became one of Alexander's favorites. That's one, and he was one of the four heads that fought in the wars of the Adachi. All right. Now, let's look at the fourth one, the fourth head. All right. Seleucus, the first Nicator, was a Macedonian Greek general, officer, and successor of Alexander the Great, who went on to found the eponymous Seleucid Empire, led by the Seleucid dynasty. In the power struggles that followed Alexander's death, Seleucus rose from being a secondary player to becoming total ruler of Asia Minor, Syria, Mesopotamia, and the Iranian plateau, assuming the title of Basileus or emperor. The Seleucid Empire was one of the major powers of the Hellenistic world until it was overcome by, now they done gave the preface into the next beast, the Roman Republic and the Parthian Empire in the late 2nd and early 1st centuries BC. But this was that fourth head, right? Now let's look at the landmass. Right? Look at how big the landmass has gotten since the last empire, right? Remember it said they ruled in their place. Well, here's Ptolemy's place. Here's Cassander's place. Here's Lysimachus's place. Here is Seleucus's place. All of this ended up being what you know as the third beast, the Macedonian Empire. All right. The Macedonian Empire. Now, the last verse I'm going to break down, very next verse is going to be, so let's go back to the Bible. Go back to the Bible. Woo! King Brian. And imagine I have to do this every time. This is how I do it. I do this pretty much every time I'm asked about it. About Daniel 7. For part 2, I'll finish Daniel 7, but this is just part 1. This is just from verses 1 through 7, because I want to assure that my people fully understand everything which Daniel saw in his prophecy, which was a prophecy in his time when he was alive. Again, this prophecy has all come to pass already. Is now what we call ancient history. It is historically true. All this happened. All of this happened. So let's go to Daniel 7 and 7. Daniel 7 and verse 7. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. Man, it had a great military presence. Remember what the teeth are, that's your military. It devoured and brake in pieces. It stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go into the 10 horns, King Brian. That's going to be in part 2. For part 2, I'm going to do from verse 8 on down. Okay. Much easier. Don't have to. Well, I do have to give some detail, but not as great detail. All right. To break it down. And then what's going to happen is someone going to come to me and say, will you break down Daniel 8? Well, believe it or not, a lot of what's in Daniel 8 is coming straight from Daniel 7. Just before that, it's going to happen. It happens every time. It happens every time. So I have to do part 2 to Daniel 7. Then I'll do Daniel 8. All right. I'm not promising when I'm going to do them, but I will definitely do them. Okay. So you see here that this fourth dominance, it was different from all the rest. You got a precursor when we was reading about that fourth head of the third beast, right? So I want to go now. We're going to stay in the Bible for right now to 2nd Esdras 11 and 1. And yes, this is the Roman Empire. So let's go to 2nd Esdras 11 and 1. And Queen Shavonda, you see how much more detail? Because I asked you a question about some major dominances that are found throughout the Bible. Look at how much more detailed it is. And all of this is backed by history and historical facts. That's how true the Bible is. The Bible, Israel, is very real. There's no getting around it. But let me go ahead, because I'll mess around and go to harping on something else. Let's go ahead and let's get this. We're going to get 2nd Esdras 11 and 1. Then I saw a dream, and beheld, there came up from it, from the sea, an eagle. which had 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. Eagle with 12 feathered wings and 3 heads. Let's go over a chapter. This is talking about the Roman Empire, Israel. We're going to get verses 10 and 11. Second Esdras chapter 10, we're going to get verses 10 and 11. Listen to this. And he said unto me, this is the interpretation of the vision. The eagle whom thou sawest come up from the sea is the kingdom which was seen in the vision of thy brother Daniel. This is the Most High letting Ezra know. Daniel saw this same people, this same kingdom, this same domination, this same empire, right? So now let's go to Revelation chapter 17. Let's go to Revelation chapter 17. John the Revelator. Let's see. John the Revelator. Let's see what was revealed to him about this same empire. Revelation chapter 17. And we're going to get verses 12 through 16. Let's see what this says. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, and there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Oh, I was supposed to read verse 12. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be down in verse 12. I apologize, Israel. I'm supposed to be reading verse 12 through verse 16. That's what I mean. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but received power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. They shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful. These were the Romans. Right? So let's go to First Maccabees. First Maccabees. I apologize, Israel. I was kind of hyped up. I didn't even go straight to the scripture I meant to get Revelation 17, verses 12 through 16. Let's go to First Maccabees. And we're going to get chapter 8. First Maccabees, chapter 8. And we're going to get verses 1 through 16. Then we're going to go look at the historical of this particular empire, this particular dominance, this particular kingdom. Now Judas, and we're going down to verse 16, had heard of the Romans, that they were mighty and valiant men, and such as would lovingly accept all that joined themselves unto them. Now, this is what kind of made them different. They'd come to you and say, look, you either can roll with us or get rolled over by us. Right? That was different. There hadn't been a structure of war until this particular empire. Let's keep going. And that is a military strategy that came with this empire, right? And make a league of amity with all that came unto them. So theirs grew because A lot of folks is like, man, he done said either we need to get down or lay down. And a lot of them said, well, we just gonna get down because we done seen the ones that don't that lay down. When he lay them down, that's it. All right. Verse 2, and that they were men of great valor. It was told him also of their wars and noble acts which they had done among the Galatians, and how they had conquered them and brought them under tribute, and that they had done in the country of Spain for the winning of the mines of the silver and gold, which is there, and that by their policy and patience, look at how different this beast was. This beast had a senate. This was so different than any of the previous three beasts. This beast had a senate. Well, modern day Babylon got a senate too. And it's different than that one because it's got a house and a senate. Let me keep going. Let me stay on topic. Right? And that by their policy and patience, they had conquered all the place, though it were very far from them, and the kings also that came against them from the uttermost parts of the earth, because you got to think, this land, as these dominions are coming about, the land mass is growing greater and greater as far as the territory that's acquired with each one of them, right? Uttermost part of the earth, till they had discomfited them and give them a great overthrow. Oh, this particular beast was overthrowing everybody, so that the rest did give them tribute every year. Besides this, how they had discomfited in battle Philip and Perseus, the king of Sittims, with others that lifted up themselves against them and had overcome them. This beast had overthrew all these, right? How also Antiochus, the great king of Asia, that came against them in battle, having 120 elephants with horsemen and chariots and a very great army, was discomfited by them. Look at what all they was taking over. Look at how dominant this particular empire was. Look at this beast. And how they took him alive and covenanted that he and such as reigned after him should pay a great tribute and give hostages, and that which was great upon, and the country of India and Media and Lydia, and of the goodliest countries which they took of him and gave to King Eumenes. Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them. So the Greeks, they were the empire prior to this empire, right? Look at what happened when the Greeks came to destroy them, right? Moreover, how the Grecians had determined to come and destroy them, and that they, having knowledge thereof, sent against them a certain captain, and fighting with them, slew many of them, and carried away captives their wives and their children, and spoiled them, and took possession of their lands, and pulled down their strongholds, and brought them to be their servants unto this day. It was told him besides how they destroyed and brought under their dominion all other kingdoms and isles that at any time resisted them. But with their friends, see, they had allies. Modern day Babylon got a whole bunch of allies too, don't they? That's for another truth for thought. but that with their friends and such as relied upon them, they kept amity. That is a practice today by the United States. And that they had conquered kingdoms both far and nigh, insomuch as all that heard of their name were afraid of them. Also, that whom that they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. They, even some of the ones that said, we gonna roll with you, they still, the person that was the ruler at that time of that place, they come and kill him and make sure it was a Roman sitting in that highest seat. Kind of like the United States will go to different places and they gonna force democracy. They gonna force it, make it happen. But that's for another time. For another time. Let me keep going. Yet, for all of this, none of them wore a crown or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered. We're going down to the next verse. And they that committed their government to one man every year, who ruled over all their country. Boy, don't that sound like America? Let me read that again. Moreover, how they had made for themselves a senate house, wherein 320 men sat in council daily, consulting always for the people, to the end they might be well ordered, and that they committed their government to one man every year, every 4 years in the United States, who ruled over all their country, and that all were obedient to that one, and that there was neither envy nor emulation among them. A lot of this was adopted by modern day Babylon, but who we're talking about again. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and let's go look at it. Let's just get into it. Is the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the post-Republican state of ancient Rome. It included territory around the Mediterranean, in Europe, North Africa, and West Asia, and was ruled by emperors. The adoption of Christianity as the state church in 380 and the fall of the Western Roman Empire conventionally marks the end of the classical antiquity and the beginning of the Middle Ages. Rome had expanded its rule to most of the Mediterranean and beyond, but became severely destabilized in civil wars and political conflicts, which culminated in the victory of Octavian over Mark Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BC, and the subsequent conquest of the Ptolemaic Kingdom in Egypt. The Roman Senate granted Octavian overarching power, or imperium, and the new title of Augustus, making his ascension as the first Roman emperor of a monarchy with Rome as its sole capital. The vast Roman territories were organized in senatorial and imperial provinces, just like cities and states in the United States of America. Cities, states, towns, provinces. Another truth thought. I know. The first 2 centuries of the empire saw a period of unprecedented stability and prosperity known as the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace. Rome reaches its greatest territorial expanse under Trajan. A period of increasing trouble and decline began under Commodus, 180 to 192. In the 3rd century, the empire underwent a crisis that threatened its existence as the Gallic and Palmyrian empires broke away from the Roman state, and a series of short-lived emperors led the empire. It was reunified under Aurelian. Diocletian set up 2 different imperial courts in the Greek East and Latin West in 286. Christians rose to power in the 4th century following the Edict of Milan. The imperial seat moved from Rome to Byzantium in 330, renamed Constantinople after Constantine the Great. The migration period, involving large invasions by Germanic peoples and by the Huns of Attila, led to the decline of the Western Roman Empire and the fall of Ravenna to the Germanic Herulians, and the deposition of Romulus Augustus in 476 by Odoacer. The Western Roman Empire finally collapsed. The Eastern Roman Empire survived for another millennium, with Constantinople as its sole capital until the city's fall in 1453. Let's look at how vast the land was that was the Roman Empire. All right, let's look at this. It was the Roman Empire. Look at how much more landmass it was than where it started. Of course, I have to show I have to show this, right? This is what I want to show, right? The sign of the Roman, eerily reminiscent of the United States of America. But I said you see a bunch of wings in today's Truth for Thought, right? I said, I did. So let's go back to Daniel 7, because that's good. That's where I'm gonna end it for part 1, right? So that everyone will understand what exactly. I even gave you some background of everything that Daniel was speaking of. What Daniel saw, right? The first beast. Okay, just to summarize. The first beast is the beast that took over the Assyrian Empire. That is the Neo-Assyrian Empire. That is the Neo-Babylonian Empire. That is verse 4. Verse 4 is all about the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Verse 5 is all about the Persians and the Medes, the Achaemenid Empire. Verse 6 is all about the Greeks and the starts with an M on the tip of my tongue. The Macedonian Empire. the Macedonian Empire, right? And verse 7. Verse 7 is all about the Romans and the Roman Empire. All right. I will have the links to everything in the description. But for now, Israel. I'm going to end this first part of the breakdown of Daniel 7. I'm going to leave it right here. I'm going to ask that you continue to keep in prayer everyone that's on the prayer list. And I want to say, till next time, be at the Most High. It's your beloved brother, King Marcus. I love you, and Shalom.